And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here around the world. Anyway, in today's episode, we'll be talking about Apple's new release of their new product, AirTag. Then we'll be talking about Sony's new partnership, not just with Netflix, now with Disney. So that's interesting. Then we'll be talking about what's happening in the crypto market. It's been going up, and up in terms of its valuation. And all of a sudden, it's going down now. Why? So we'll talk about that in a bit. And if you stay tuned at the end of the episode, we'll be talking about Fortnite's how they generate their revenue now. If you notice, if you knew from previous that Fortnite which is owned by Epic, is battling Apple. So will this have a significant effect in their bottom line, in their revenue? Stay tuned for that one. Anyway, if you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe. And let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me. So to start off, we have Apple's recent release in their recently launched event, and where they showcased the AirTag as their new product. Now, obviously, they've been releasing several products in the past. What makes this unique is its feature, so to speak. Let's take a closer look here. So here we have, according to CNBC.com, it mentions that for all the products that have been selling in the past, it's quite inexpensive considering the other main product lines here. So it's costing around almost $30, so around roughly 1,500 pesos if you were to buy it here in the Philippines. So what this AirTag does is you can pair it up with your valuables, whether it's key, backpack, or any items that it's valuable. So if it gets lost, then you can use Apple's built-in Find My software app, so to speak, so that you can sync it up and it can find your items. Now, its unique features, which we'll be discussing in a bit, makes it unique compared to other companies who have delved into this type of technology. So let's take a closer look. So as mentioned here, so it's Apple's differentiating feature here is not the how small the item is or how inexpensive it is, but it's using its technology by leveraging its infrastructure in terms of using other people's iPhones to locate, as I mentioned, the AirTag here. So it does not use the GPS here, which typically you use to locate items, right? Because one downside of using GPS here is obviously it drains your battery here quickly. And obviously it raises privacy questions, which is one of the main problems if you're planning to buy this product, so companies can keep track of your movements, right? Anyway, so the difference here is it uses Bluetooth signals instead, so it scrambles the signals. So if another iPhone user is detecting your device, will be relayed to your device here, so without the person or other people knowing what are they relaying all about. And obviously it needs other existing iPhone to listen for them to be able to locate them. So it uses Bluetooth technology as mentioned, and using or leveraging the readily available hundreds of millions of either iOS, iPad OS, and even Mac OS devices worldwide, in particular in the North American region, to locate missing devices. So it does not connect with regular Wi-Fi device or even cellular network. So it makes a interesting how they utilize their technology here. Now, obviously, their key advantage here, as mentioned, is Apple is a very popular brand, not just around the world, but in particular in North America, where they have a stranglehold in terms of their market share. They have over 1 billion iPhone users. So obviously they're using that to their advantage and using those connectivity to be able to connect, your AirTags with other devices here. And obviously it's leveraging its ecosystem, not just other devices, but in this case, using it to their advantage. And obviously makes it a compelling case why this product will be a big seller for the company, even though it's not necessarily an expensive item. And this is according to Luke Ventures, the founder of Gene Monsters, who said that earlier. Anyway, so the AirTag will have better navigation and discovery features along with a billion plus device network that can be utilized to help locate lost items as mentioned. And now the number of devices participating in this network is important. Obviously, without the other devices, the product will not work as intended, right? And obviously, if you lost it in the middle of the desert, according to the article, obviously it would not make sense. So it only is applicable if you're going to very populated places where obviously Apple is the main dominant market in that particular region and so forth. So if it's in the middle of the city, let's say in the North American, where almost 50% or 42% of people own an iPhone, it makes sense there. So if you live in United States or even in Canada, obviously it's a good bet that if you invest in this technology, it would make sense. Now, if you live outside of the territory, it would be a case-to-case basis here. So it would make it much more difficult to locate your devices, obviously. And obviously, the AirTag here is an effort for Apple, the company, to distinguish itself or what it tries to promote. Its safety or security feature, and obviously it also encourages or discourages current users from switching to their competitor, which is the Android devices here. Now obviously it's not a big money maker for the company, but it adds value to their brand itself. And obviously they're promoting their privacy positioning is always an important aspect here. I think that's why they wanted to push this product, and I think it's going to do well here. And obviously their advertisement of privacy and security is a major differentiation compared to other competitors here. And Apple is building on that reputation so that obviously their core customers will stick to their the brand and make it more less likely to shift or to switch to a different brand or even network in this case, or vice versa, encourages other users from different platforms to use Apple's instead, right? And the question here is, will the consumer find the system reliable and trustworthy so that they would be encouraged to use it? And won't there be any leaks like what has happened in, let's say, in the case of Facebook, where there were data breach, if indeed it is considered secured in a sense? So we have to wait and see how the market adapts to this new technology here. And also Apple says that the network or the MyFind network keeps location data private and anonymous, and that it does not store its location data or his. Obviously that's a very important aspect if you're going to purchase that. Otherwise they could just use your information and leverage it and sell it to other third-party companies here. Now obviously if they're able to pull it up, which it's possible, and it's going to take a lot of complicated software engineering here. Now obviously they have the capability, the resources, and the engineers to do that. So obviously Apple's user will need to decide at the end of the day whether you trust the system or the network, or understand enough for you to be able to adapt and say, I'm willing to buy for the service. So the convenience of, if I lose an item, you could just easily find it. Obviously it's a common problem for many people, losing items left, and even I sometimes tend to forget where I left my key. So having this type of device or technology would always be helpful here. Anyway, continuing. So as I mentioned, so it's not just that they're leveraging the technology, they're partnering up with other companies to enhance their position. And one of the companies I was surprised to partner with them is Hermes, one of the most luxurious brand, most expensive high-end brands in the world, is partnering to showcase where you can place your AirTag devices with their Hermes exclusive AirTag travel tag, which is going to be expensive. Obviously I think he mentions that it's going to be $699 or $700, and you can partner up also with the Hermes iPhone 12 MagSafe case, which is around $570, so which is pretty steep if you think about it. Anyway, according to AppleInsider.com, they mentioned the luxury leather brand Hermes has introduced a fourth option of its AirTag accessory here. So let's see here. There you go. So you can see here that they're offering a leather brand, not just for the AirTag but as well as for the iPhone 12 version here. Now it's only available from the company's own store along with a new leather iPhone 12 case here. Now Hermes' own store offers one more AirTag option here that is not available in the Apple store here. So you have to check it out if you're really interested. But I like the color here. It looks more orange here in a sense. Anyway, obviously for them, luxury is something that, you know, is an excess rather than necessity. But always they provide premiumness in their products that they're selling. So obviously they're more known for their handbags and so forth. So if you travel, it makes sense to have this AirTag travel tag in a sense. So not only you put the AirTag here, so if it gets lost, you can easily locate it, and there's a name tag attached to it. So if you combine it with your luggage and bag, so when you travel, it makes sense for them to partner up, right? So Hermes Air Traveler is a leather holder for an AirTag, which is supplied complete with an exclusive etching of the Clou de Sel signature. So it includes a windowed section, as you can see here, to add contact details that are visible, similar to other AirTags used for suitcases. Now, obviously, the main difference here is it has an AirTag attached to it. So you can use your phones, or let's say when you travel, you can travel again, and then when you arrive at an destination, and you're in the carousel trying to locate your bag, you just use the your device to easily locate it if you can see it in the when it's comes out anyway. And the product is made from fawn Barenia cow skin, so it shows that the AirTag at the rear with the metal engraving clearly visible there. So I think it's this one, right? Anyway, so the travel tag for Hermes is going to cost around $700. So that's going to be around 35,000 pesos. So it's not going to be cheap, but it's going to be available for pre-order, and it ships later, or it's going to ship later this month or end of this month. Anyway, so Hermes exclusive tag is the most expensive version produced by the company. So obviously Apple is offering other cheaper alternatives. So if you're looking for a more affordable one, well, relatively speaking, relative to Apple here, so you can buy their bag charm price at $300. So that's 15,000 pesos. And then you have the key ring that's only 350 or $349, $350. That's around 15 to $20,000 pesos, sorry. Then you have the luggage tag worth $450 or 20 to 25,000 pesos in the Philippines. So it's not going to be cheap, but you know, anyway, if you're interested in traveling anytime soon, then you might be interested in picking up these items here. Anyway, sticking with Apple news still. So for our last story here now, obviously, you know, not all things that come from Apple news is always good news. Then this article came about, and I was surprised that, you know, for all the things that Apple does well, meaning in terms of creating products, selling their products to their consumers, you know, they always do these types of things that irritate consumers, even I. Anyway, so it mentions here in the article that Apple's appeal over buy and rent misleading tag lawsuits is rejected by the federal judge. And according to the article here at techtimes.com, they mentioned that when you buy a product, especially digital products, right, that the labels buy and rent is different in terms of Apple's definition. So when you sell that content, or Apple sells that content, they say that you don't own it, which is, you know, I don't know what the buy concept is. If you buy something, you own it, right? If you rent it, it's a temporary option, right? So anyway, so we'll dig deeper here. Anyway, so a plaintiff, in this case, Mr. David Andino. So where was it? There you go. So here we have Mr. Andino stating that Apple has misled consumers when it tells them that they can buy digital versions of whether albums, TV shows, and even films in their Apple stores. Okay, so and then they say that when you buy it, Apple retains the power to terminate with the consumers. So let's say you don't download it or buy it immediately. So when their distribution rights with their respective let's say you bought a film from Disney, which owned by Disney, and then they lose the distribution rights, you don't own the content anymore. So whether that seems fair or not, could be a big issue here, since if the company loses distribution rights, let's say it expires, so meaning users who have not secured downloading your device, or in this case the device, meaning you don't own the content. And if you go to the website, let's say to App Store, and try to download it, they would say you can't download it anymore. So you'd be surprised if one day, if your digital content is gone and can't be retrieved. And I think that's the main issue that Mr. Andino is contesting. That's why he went to court and ruled for the plaintiff here. And according to the district court judge, John Mendez, it shows that the company's argument were not convincing enough. Obviously, when you buy an item, it means to acquire or to possess over something. And obviously, when you buy a car, you own it. It's not where you bought it. Toyota owns it, or even Mitsubishi, or any car company manufacturer. Once there's an exchange of goods and services, money for a product or services, then you own it, right? And Apple is contesting that that's not the same. Now, obviously, the issue here is more on digital content. So it becomes a gray area in a sense that it's not something physical that you can own. So can you download it over and over again? I think that's what they're trying to contest here. Now, obviously, as a consumer, it is reasonable to expect that access could never be revoked, since obviously it's already bought, whether it's physical product or digital content here. And obviously, the misleading aspect towards Apple consumer is the exact nature of ownership here. And he made a strong case here that that Apple should try to be more consumer friendly in a sense. Obviously, consumers are trying to buy in your platform, and if you continue this path of trying to be antagonistic in a sense, and obviously you lose loyalty here, which is what you don't want to happen here anytime soon. And obviously, if you paid for Apple's digital content that you could lose anytime in the future, then why would I buy your digital content in the first place, if that's the case? Whether that's for music, videos, or even games, right? In Steam, if you purchase a game, so let's say you've run out of space, right? You delete it. So anytime in the future, as long as Steam is still existing, you could still download it at any time. I think I just downloaded the Witcher 3, right? Because I haven't played for so long, so I wanted to play it again. So I can re-download it. Doesn't mean if the game is not available, then they have to refund me the money, right? I don't think Apple wants that as well. But anyway, going to entertainment here. So I think kudos for Sony here for making this deal, right? So we talked about Sony making a big deal by partnering up with Netflix before, so that they can showcase their showcase their films, not just their library, but ongoing films they're going to produce in the future, so that there will be easy access for consumers. Obviously, Netflix is the biggest streaming services in the world. Well, Sony has made another deal by partnering with Disney. So they just made a partnership that's official, so that they can bring the Spider-Man films to their Disney library, and also be able to showcase in their streaming services, Disney Plus as well as Hulu here. Now, according to TheVerge.com, they mentioned that Disney and Sony have signed a multi-year content licensing agreement. So it's a temporary, but still, it benefits everyone here, right? I mean, if you're a consumer, I don't want just to have exclusivity of having to subscribe to Disney Plus. But if I have a different subscription in other services, if Disney is smart, they would do that as well with their films. But that's a different discussion. But anyway, so going back. So this will bring Sony's theatrical releases starting not this year but in 2022, sorry. So meaning all of the films in the future can be released by then. That's for new releases, but for their back catalog, they can already watch it in their platform. So obviously, this deal gives Disney the rights to many of Sony's older film franchises. Obviously, you have Spider-Man as one, and then I think what was the other one? Jumanji, I think, is another. So we'll see in a bit. Now, obviously, Spider-Man is missing in their catalog. Obviously, Sony owns that franchise. So it's going to be good for many Disney Plus owners or subscribers. So you can watch it now. And obviously in Sony's theatrical, sorry, where was it? There you go. In Sony's theatrical release, so that's from 2022 all the way to 2026. So anything in between there that's released by Sony can be seen in their Disney platforms. But there's a small caveat there, so I'll explain in a bit. So they will get to access the film by pay one TV window in a sense, starting in 2022 as I mentioned. So meaning after the film's theatrical release and home video, when that run ends, which will be owned by Netflix, which obviously Sony has the prior arrangement with it. So that means new Sony films that will hit theaters first, then paid rentals and purchases, then it will go to Netflix and eventually finally head over to Disney platforms. So meaning Disney Plus and even Hulu. Meaning, even though they might not get first dibs in the films, but they would eventually have access to those films, which I think should be the norm for all movie studios, that every film should be accessible to any platform. They just lease it or give a licensing right so that everyone can access it, whether I like using Peacock, Paramount Plus, or in this case Netflix, or whatever streaming service that make it difficult for your consumers to watch your content, right? Anyway, so obviously it's continuing to invest heavily in the MCU universe, whether that's good or bad. I mean, personal experience, I'm getting too tired of watching those cinematic MCU films, which I think they're going to release the Black Widow, then Shang-Chi, which it's in a lot of hot water recently, so we have to wait and see how that pans out. But obviously, too much of something is always not a bad. It's always a bad thing eventually. But obviously, if you're a Disney Plus subscriber, it gives you a reason to stay subscribed in their platform now. Whether that's enough, it's up to you. So you have to decide here. But on the other hand, Sony here will provide the other franchise. As I mentioned, you have Jumanji and Hotel Transylvania, just to name a few here. So obviously this will boost the library that Disney already owns, from the Disney films, from the animated films that they own, and the MCU. Then you have Star Wars, just to name a few here. Anyway, sticking with entertainment here in the films, all right. Are you familiar with the John Wick series, right? So they're going to make a prequel that is set in the 1970s. So one should think that you should be excited, right? But here's the hitch. John Wick will not be present in that prequel. So meaning there will be no Keanu Reeves, which is, I kind of surprised that they went through with this, because the John Wick series was synonymous to the character of John Wick, which is Keanu Reeves' character. And if you're not going to include Keanu Reeves in the prequel, who's going to watch it? And the film here, according to the executive producer, is focusing on the Continental, which is the hotel that we see in the films where John visited throughout the film's run here, right? So I don't know if it makes a compelling case here. But anyway, so according to IGN.com here, it mentions that the film would focus on the Continental as the setting here. So how the Continental came up, where I think what was the main character there? The owner, I forgot who the owner was there. McShane's character there, right? He was the owner of the Continental. But anyway, so how it came to be and so forth. But again, the Continental is synonymous with John Wick, and if there's no John Wick, the character here, and who are we going to look forward to? And they haven't mentioned who's going to be the lead character here, right? Anyway, so as mentioned, the Continental, the John Wick spin-off series that takes place 40 years before the film. So meaning, for sure, Keanu Reeves hasn't been there. He's not going to make a special cameo or appearance in that franchise, in that particular film. So this is not good news. Anyway, so the new prequel series will focus on a younger character of Ian McShane's Winston, that will be set in 1970s, which is, I don't know, maybe it's just me that it's kind of disappointing. They would have, I think, a good strategy would have been do the prequel of the first John Wick, right? And focus on a younger John Wick. That would have been more compelling, right? Before he become the Baba Yaga in that storyline. Anyway, well, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, so they're stating that they're exploring the Continental, the venue as mentioned in the young Winston, how it came to be, that how he and the team, his team of Confederates found their way into the hotel, which what they're known for it is 40 years down the line. So obviously the Continental is a major location in the John Wick trilogy where the assassin visited the hotel several times, wherein you can visit the hotel, but there's only one rule: you can't kill anyone inside the grounds. And if you kill someone, you already know what happened in the first film. And if you step outside of the facility or the hotel or its boundaries, all bets are off here. Obviously, for those who are hoping for Keanu Reeves to make an appearance, as I mentioned, you're going to be very disappointed. I was very disappointed when they mentioned this already and they confirmed it. So making him an executive director, producer, not director, sorry, doesn't make sense. It has to be in the film. Otherwise, what's the story plot here? You're going to start all over again. You've already invested a lot in the character of John Wick, right? Rather than go back, maybe go forwards in the story. I don't know. Well, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Anyway, so going to games here now. Are you familiar with the latest game that was recently released? The Resident Evil franchise have released a new one. It's called the Resident Evil 7, or called The Village, or Resident Evil Village. And according to Eurogamer.net, sorry, they recently released a life-size towel that is almost 10 feet tall of the famous character, the vampiric villain, Lady Dimitrescu. So if you're familiar. So let's see here, where was it? Can you see it? There you go. So it's a 9 feet 6 inches tall vampiric villain, which is Lady Dimitrescu, as mentioned. So let's see here. Let's take a closer look. There you go. So you can see here, you can see it life size beside an actual person lying down. So you can see that it's actually a very big towel. So if you're not familiar with who Lady Dimitrescu is, let me show you how she is in the game itself. So she looks fine, not that scary, but if you play the game, you'll see what will happen to the main character here. Anyway, so Capcom released this via Twitter for a competition for a chance to win the towel, as mentioned. And obviously they released by showing the 3-meter long character here. What's it? There you go. Release game showing the 3-meter long price compared to the 180-meter tall man beside it. So are you going to play the game here? Obviously, I played the first and second, I think the third, all the way to the third one, the Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, up all the way to Codename Veronica in the early PlayStation 1-2 days. So I haven't been playing the recent reboot of the game here, but it looks interesting here. So if you're an avid gamer, so there's something to look forward there. Anyway, next we have here in terms of the cryptocurrency. So I mean, we just talked about it last week, right? How the cryptocurrency has been booming, right? With the value of Bitcoin has been going up. more than 60,000, then went down, then goes up again. Then you have Ethereum, who is doing well. Then all of a sudden, boom, according to this article, it says the crypto 300 billion market dump was caused by traders fearing the increased capital gains tax, according to techtimes.com. So is it doom and gloom for if you're investing in cryptocurrency here now? Obviously, with the value is going higher and higher, but obviously with external factors, in this case, the United States government, see to it that there's going to be an increase in capital gain. So anything, any investment that you made in the cryptocurrency, you will have to pay a higher capital gains tax here, which is obviously to no one's preference here. So meaning many of the sellers, jumped the market, and as they started to sell their shares or bitcoins and whatnots and so forth. Now, is this going to be a long-term problem that it's going to significantly dampen the crypto market valuation? We have to wait and see. But according to the article here, it mentions that the valuation drop is reported declined by as much as hundreds of billions of dollars, right? So it's not a small amount that that almost dropped in just a few days here. But again, the price of Bitcoin in this case, right, from as high as 60 to 65, I think it's has dipped to low 50s to as much as 47, 48,000, which is pretty significant here. So if you're invested millions, tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions of dollars, so you can just see shift from one side to the other, which just goes to show you that how volatile the cryptocurrency market is. And especially if you're a US participant, a portion of the whole market went down. And obviously, whether you're the wealthiest, both in the corporate and the retail sector here. And obviously, the Bitcoin down cryptocurrencies is sorry, the total cryptocurrencies market capitalization as previously provided. So we can see here the trading view fell from $2 trillion to as low as 1.7 trillion. So $300 billion were lost in this whole fickle blockchain asset here. And according to the data aggregator known as BYBT, there was over 3.4 billion in the long-term liquidations that occurred across all different currencies here. So it's not just Bitcoin, you have Dogecoin, and even what do you call this? What's the other one? Ethereum, yes. In just a 1-day span or 24 hours here. So, should you be concerned if you've invested heavily here? Now, it just goes to show that don't put your eggs in one basket if you want to make sure that you stay liquid and stay sound. Otherwise, if it were to crumble, all of your investments will go up in smokes here. Anyway, next we have here is how Uber and Lyft is doing really well in terms of increased demand of their services, but with one small problem: they don't have enough drivers to provide those services. So according to this article, more than half of Uber and Lyft drivers have stopped driving during the pandemic, which is reasonable. But in this current year, that number is far from recovered. So meaning there's no one enticed, encouraged to pursue this gig economy or providing Lyft sharing services here. And according to businessinsider.com, mentioned Uber and Lyft's demand from rider has reached or even surpassed pre-pandemic levels. But the issue here is no one is taking the bite in a sense, or no one's biting in terms of who's going to drive you from one place to another. Now, obviously, one of the main issue here is where was it? There you go. It mentions the safety factor. If I'm a driver, why would I risk my life, driving people from one place to another if I'm not guaranteed in terms of health benefits, protective gear or equipment, whatever, right? So to feel comfortable to be able to provide the service that I was able to do pre-pandemic, right? Anyway, so as the numbers have showed, the number of drivers on the road for Uber and Lyft in the United States was over 35% lower than where it was January last year. And according to the data here, so let's take a closer look. So you'll be pretty alarmed and surprised what you see here. So as mentioned here, so pre-pandemic, there's already a decline there after the pandemic, and all the way to the present, it's still in the negative, right? Meaning, there is a demand, but people are not, considering this as a viable option of source of income. So question is, what would the company do here if you're, Uber or Lyft here? So it just highlights how the situation is. So it gives a sense of how much the work the company needs to improve to get up to fully meeting the requirements of the market. And as you can see here, there's still less than 2/3 the number of pre-pandemic drivers that are driving. So even if there's a supply, there's a demand, but there's no supply. Maybe the company has to charge more to be able, or unless the company spend big to lure drivers back. So question is, how are they going to convince those drivers who seem that, obviously the pandemic, the COVID-19 issue is their their primary issue here. How can the company guarantee the safety here? And obviously, if I were in their place, I will not be so inclined to go back to driving other people, right? So obviously Uber and Lyft as the company has mentioned that they have launched high price public campaigns. Now campaign is one thing, but offering drivers incentive is another. I think increasing salary is another one, or the per hour rate that they get, or maybe the share, give them a more substantial one compared to previous one. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to take further risk. And what they mentioned is short-term offers to pick up more passengers. So again, it gives more advantage for the company, but not so much for the drivers here. So unless they change that dynamic, the trend's not going to change anytime soon here. And obviously, for the driver, they reveal that their worries and concerns are they always keep coming back from the key safety of getting infected or infecting other people. Obviously, it has been a source of reliable income for many people, especially as a part-time gig worker. So, obviously, the companies has to give this some consideration and find ways to ensure that their drivers will be taken care and they will receive good substantial money. Otherwise, it won't make sense to help them either way. And obviously, the numbers don't lie. So until they do something drastic, that's not going to change anytime soon. And others are already abandoning the platform. As you can see, the flow of the ebb and flow of the demand, especially with the ongoing pandemic here. So as drivership has declined, but the company sees a quick recovery in the demand, means what if you don't have people to bring those people to different places here. So it mentions that they have more bookings in March than they had in previous history. So that's good in a sense, but again, you don't take advantage of it, it's still an opportunity loss. So high demand is always good to have, but the problem is how you meet the demand is another problem. So supply is always just one of the issue. It should be main issue that they should be concerned here with. Anyway, so for some local news, so here we have one of the big giants in terms of manufacturing food and cookies or sweets are considered to be in the ranks of the billionaire ranks. So the article is Philippines' biggest IPO could catapult instant noodle tycoon into a billionaire ranks, according to Forbes.com. So the IPOs that's mentioned is we're talking about a Monde Nissin Corporation, which could mint a new billionaire here for the company's founder, Miss Betty Ang, who will have a net worth of in the north of $1.1 billion. So that's dollars, not pesos. So that's pretty significant. So let's see here. So Monde Nissin is, if you're not familiar, is a market leader in the manufacturing of instant noodles, crackers and cookies in the Philippines here. So they're targeting to raise 63 billion pesos. That's $1.3 billion. So by selling 3.6 billion common shares at the price of 1750 pesos. So if you're interested in investing in the company, it's not that expensive, so it's worth a look here. So one of the country's biggest IPO ever. So obviously, the company, if you're not familiar, has been in the business for more than 4 decades, with a net sales of 1.4 billion in last year alone. So they're known for their consumer brands, the Lucky Me, if you're familiar, and their instant noodle, as well as their crackers, the Skyflakes crackers. Actually, my kids like Skyflakes. So anyway, so the company in recent years has ventured into other products, actually acquiring British meat substitute corn in 2015 in the amount of $831 million. So meaning they're trying to expand, grow their business slowly but surely. So they're also exporting their products into more than 50 countries worldwide, which is, meaning there's a lot of demand for their products. Anyway, so they plan to use the proceeds of the IPO that they generate to boost, obviously, to improve their production capability or capacity, especially in the meat substitutes, among the growing demand for health and conscious consumers. So, which is good news, right? So, congratulations to the company and more power to them. So, hopefully, we have more companies that can compete in the global scale here. Anyway, for our last story here, so I mentioned earlier that Fortnite is how do they generate their revenue, and for all their news, they've been embroiled with a legal battle with Apple with regards to the 30% fee that they have to pay every time a consumer buys their product or makes an in-store purchase and so forth. So one would wonder, why would they go against a big platform such as Apple? Well, this article explains a whole lot about it. So Fortnite's cash cow is PlayStation, not iOS, as court documents reveals, according to TheVerge.com, wherein it mentions how iOS version of Fortnite was a huge revenue driver for Epic Games, which owns Fortnite, and it earned more than $700 million. Now, one would consider 700 million is a big chunk of money of generating from your customers here. Well, the article begs to disagree. So it mentioned here, even though Fortnite players brought a staggering amount of money, which is substantial, it isn't the biggest platform in terms of revenue. So as you can see later on, it mentions PlayStation 4 is the main generator here. So let me show here. So it's PlayStation, Sony's PlayStation, that provides a significant amount, as much as 46.8%. So that's almost half of their revenue, total revenue here. So if you can see here, where was it? Yes. So that's from March of 2018 all the way to July 2020. So if Sony is number one, can iOS be next? No. Xbox is second with a 27.5% market share. Now, what's ironic here, Apple's iOS is only fifth, right? So meaning other platforms such as PC, you also have Switch is the main contributor here, where Apple's iOS here only contributes a small percent. So no wonder they're willing to go battle against Apple here, since they're not their main source of revenue. I mean, they're part of the revenue source, but it's not the main generator here. So you can see here that Fortnite's billion-dollar business, which with a capital B, so in 2019 alone, it generated almost $1.8 billion in revenue. So, they're not a small company that, obviously compared to Apple here. And then compared that to last year, it doubled from 1.8 to $3.85 billion. So despite the pandemic that's going on, obviously people, especially who are gamers, have nothing to do playing games, especially battle royale like Fortnite is a good diversion here. So a better idea of where Fortnite makes its most money, despite investing, not just in the main platforms, is trying to expand their reach in mobile games. Now, obviously, mobile games is nowhere close to where it generates them in the other platforms as mentioned earlier. So PlayStation, Sony's PlayStation and Xbox is the bulk of Fortnite's earning, and that's why it makes sense now why Epic is fighting against Apple and also Google regarding the 30% fee here. So it makes much more sense here. Now, whether they would win here or not is another case, but you know, to each his own. If you have the resources, go right ahead here. Anyway, that concludes our show for today. So thank you again for joining me. So if you're interested in any of the topics mentioned today, I put in the link in the description below so you can read the full article. Come back again on Friday for more news here at Business Focus Live. Anyway, I'll see you again same time, same channel. Take care and stay safe.